Jewish community, the Ashkenazi community that is struggling. And well, you will hear from the conversation with Rabbi Brener and how things go on. Mainly, this will be our focus, or I would like it to be our focus, the situation of the Ashkenazi community in Caracas. So again, the JDC has been doing a wonderful job helping the whole community. But again, I would like to focus these issues or the situation of the Ashkenazi community. So sorry for being repetitive. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Rabbi Brener. My name is Molly Epstein. I'm the daughter of Marilyn and Stanley Epstein. And I see my sister is on too, Rachel Epstein.
Yes, Rabbi, it's so nice to see you.
Wonderful to see you.
Walking the streets of New York.
That's right, Rabbi. We both wear our mirrors and we were walking on the Upper West Side.
Yeah, but I'm a man and you're a woman. You're a street walker.
Can you imagine?
No, that's not a good thing. But we are so grateful for you and your friendship and all of your leadership, and also for your coffee talks.
And all of our wonderful memories of Caracas, the years we were there, and how wonderful Caracas was to us. And it will be with us forever.
How are your parents?
Baruch Hashem, they're good. They're good. They're staying locked up in their house, and they are not going anywhere or doing anything.
And they're on this Zoom.
They're on the Zoom. I don't see their pictures, but they're on.
What?
Okay. There's still a number of people who might join us. There's close to 30 already on, but I think in appreciation of everybody's time and for speakers and presenters, we should start. My name is Avram Lapin, and I am pleased to be the first of all, before we go on, if I could ask everybody if they're not speaking to mute, so that we don't have interference and everybody can hear. Just so everybody knows, it's being recorded.
I said stop video. Okay. Yes.
And, my name is Avram Lapin, and I have the pleasure of being with the Unión Israelita de Caracas, the Ashkenazi.
Can they see me now?
The Ashkenazi Jewish community in Venezuela, and just a word or two about the community, which Samuel we'll get to a little bit later. It's been in operation formally for 70 years, but goes back longer from when the first wave of European Jews escaped anti-Semitism and came to Venezuela, the UIC, the Unión, ensures that the Ashkenazi Jews living in Venezuela have access to all the tools they need to have a Jewish life and to be part of a community, helping one another when times are good and when times are tough. Once a thriving country with a flourishing Ashkenazi and Sephardi community.
They can't see me.
That Venezuela has, as everybody knows, been suffering tremendous economic and political turmoil for many years, and many Jews have emigrated. Today, the community stands at about 2,000 Ashkenazi Jews and is working hard to sustain itself and to thrive amid a difficult economic situation and a health crisis, and it's becoming more challenging to meet even the basic needs for all community members. One more word about the services of the community. It operates Jewish schools, synagogues, a community center, homes for the elderly, and it offers a variety of social, cultural, sporting, recreational activities to help members lead meaningful and productive lives in a very difficult environment. And so that's our context for today, and it's my pleasure to introduce or to recognize Samuel Gelman, who's the president of the UIC, and Roberto Mishkin, who's an officer of the UIC, who are here representing the organization and the community. It is now my esteemed pleasure to introduce our principal speakers and presenters for today, Rabbi Pynchas Brener and Rabbi Arthur Schneier. Rabbi Pynchas Brener served as the chief rabbi for Venezuela from 1967 to 2011, and as the spiritual leader emeritus, I believe today, for the UIC in Caracas. Rabbi Brener, aside from his activity in the Jewish community, also played an influential role in Venezuelan civil society. He was appointed as envoy to Israel in 2019 by Venezuela's disputed president, Juan Guaido. He is the author of several books about Judaism. He's a prolific newspaper columnist and shares his wisdom online through a series called Coffee and Faith. Rabbi Brener is also on the board of Bar-Ilan University. Rabbi Arthur Schneier is the founder of Appeal to Conscience Foundation and has served for over 50 years as spiritual leader at Park East Synagogue in New York. He's a Holocaust who has worked internationally on behalf of religious freedom, human rights, and tolerance for decades. He has worked with UN Secretaries General. Most recently, he met with Secretary General Antonio Guterres to mark International Holocaust Remembrance and 76 years since the liberation of Auschwitz just a few weeks ago. He also hosted Pope Benedict in his first synagogue visit in America. Rabbi Schneier was awarded the Presidential Citizens Medal by President Clinton in 2001, and his life's work reflects a deep understanding and commitment to Jewish communities all over the world. I will now yield to Rabbis Brener and Schneier for our discussion for today.
Thank you very much, Avram. I want to say hello to all those who are listening to us, and I want to give a very special welcome to my, should I say, old friend, but a friend of many decades, from our student days, to Rabbi Arthur Schneier. And I appreciate very much this opportunity to have a conversation with him, even though whenever I'm in New York, I usually go to his synagogue. As a matter of fact, on one occasion, he even invited me to the pulpit on the high holy days. I delivered a sermon in Park East Synagogue. So our friendship goes back to our student days, to the roasted chicken that his late mother used to feed me also because I was away from home. My home was in Peru. So there are many, many years of friendship that unite us. So Rabbi Schneier, I want to thank you very much for agreeing to have this conversation with me, with all of us, as a matter of fact, who are listening to us today about the Jewish community in Venezuela. I think I mentioned to you a few minutes ago, I was reviewing some of the writings that I did many years ago because I'm trying to do something on the internet, and I came across a report about Cuba. I visited Cuba several times and met with Fidel Castro, and the second visit in 1988. We were there, I think, in May, and we also spoke to the Jewish community, and they mentioned that they received their help for Pesach to celebrate the Passover Seder from the Jewish community of Canada. Canada had a very good relation with Cuba at that time. However, many a time the provisions would come late, and this year they came late. Rabbi Schneier had been there heading a delegation of Appeal to Conscience Foundation that he presides. Well, when he heard that, he sent the plane that took them to Havana back to the United States, brought back matzah and wine for the Jewish community in Cuba. So you can see that the relationship of Rabbi Schneier is not only with the United Nations in New York, with many countries in Europe and maybe all over the world, but Latin America is also of his interest. He just reminded me that in the 70s or so, he visited with me in Caracas, Venezuela. So Rabbi Schneier, once again, thank you very much for participating with me today. I just want to start our conversation by saying two things. That the present salary in Venezuela, the salary monthly, every 30 days, is $1, $3, maybe even less than $1 right now per month. And I think around 6 million Venezuelans have left Venezuela the last couple of years. When I was there, Venezuela was a magnet. People used to migrate to Venezuela because of the opportunities. Today, it's the other way around. It reminds one of Cuba, that people just got into the sea on anything in order to escape Cuba many years ago. In Venezuela, the majority do it on foot, walking hundreds and hundreds of miles to different countries in Latin America. So you can see that the situation is terrible. What about the Jewish community? Well, we reflect the general situation, Rabbi Schneier. You know, it's a very difficult situation that the Jewish community is going through.
I am delighted to be in dialogue with you, as we have been going back to our student days. And first of all, I thank Hashem for our longtime friendship and our ability to serve Am Yisrael, which you have done. After getting smicha, you were missing so many opportunities in the United States to lead major congregations. And I remember my visit in Caracas with you in the 70s. And I said, why are you staying in Caracas? Come back. No, I have a commitment to the community. And you had the advantage coming from Lima, knowing Latin America, speaking Spanish. But more important, I think what has bonded you and I, we are committed, Kol Yisrael Arevin Zeh Lazeh. We're all responsible for one another. And you have used your chachma, your wisdom, not only for the benefit of the community in Venezuela, but for all of Latin America, for interfaith relations with the Archbishop of Caracas, I remember, and in so many other ways, and also your kasher between Venezuela and also with the State of Israel, as a hopefully as an ambassador in waiting, okay? So when I talk to you, I have a flashback to the visit in Caracas. Yes, it was a very thriving community, not just the Jewish community. Venezuela was thriving. Those were the days when oil was very much in demand. And today, the world has changed. British Petroleum has difficulty. Exxon has difficulty. Why? Because oil prices are down. But I think what is more of concern is really the upheaval, political, the economic upheaval that has taken place in Venezuela. And that is of great concern for the entire international community. I can speak on behalf of the United Nations. The United Nations has many resolutions about trying to solve this internal conflict that is really undermining the stability of your country. It's not only the United Nations, European Union, the OASC, the Organization of Latin American States, very much concerned, particularly about over 3 to 5 million people leaving the country. That is like an earthquake that has come about in the country. And obviously it has an impact on every citizen in Venezuela, including the Jewish community. So the good thing though is European Union and the Vatican, by the way, have been trying to find a modus vivendi, a solution to this conflict. But not only trying to find a solution, but also humanitarian aid. European Union has provided a fortune of money just to ease the plight of the Venezuelan people. And, you know, we're before Pesach. We can always count on Jews wherever they reside to help other Jews. So, as a member of the board of the Joint Distribution Committee, I am happy to say that the Joint Distribution Committee is standing behind the Jewish community in Venezuela with food, with medicine, in any way. We will not let you down. So the idea again is Kol Yisrael Arevin Zalazar, and forgive for the long-winded answer, but I just want to correct your flashback about Cuba. When we arrived in 1988 to meet with President Fidel Castro, and we first visited the Jewish community in Patronado, and they were frantic. The shipment from Canada did not arrive. We visited also as an interfaith delegation. We visited the Catholic institutions, hospitals, and then we met at 10:30 at night. We met with President Fidel Castro, who was a good friend of your late president, Chavez. And after being with him till 2:30 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, I said to the president, by the way, we visited all the religious institutions in Havana, and we are very much distraught that the Jewish community did not receive the Passover shipment. Can I have your permission to send our private plane back to Palm Beach in order to provide that? He said, with me, it's fine. You may have problems with the United States. All right, sent the private plane back, and we needed to find at the last minute kosher wine and matzah and fish and so forth. And then I said to the pilot and my secretary in New York, make sure there's a case of champagne, kosher shel Pesach champagne in addition to the wine. And you know who received that case of champagne?
Fidel Castro.
Fidel Castro, okay? So you remind me of that story, and I want you to know that to this very day, actually the shipment to Havana, Cuba is going out from Canada next week, because now not only do we send them matzah and wine, but we have an order for all kinds of food they need for Pesach. So you brought back a very interesting story that I almost forgot, but I'm glad that you reminded me of it.
Very good. You know, Rabbi Schneier, the Jewish community in Venezuela right now is working with their nails, with scraping together whatever they can in order to maintain every Jewish institution. We have, for instance, a Beit Avot. We have an old age home there. We have a tremendous school. And the good times, you know, our school had almost 2,500 children going to a day school. And to this day, that day school has done more than anything else to maintain the Jewish community together. I just spoke recently to a woman that was born in Venezuela, but when she was about 19, 20, migrated to Israel, and she's been living there for 40 years. Now two-thirds of her life are in Israel, even though she has tremendous connections with Israel from before, but she was born in Venezuela. And she only went to our school something like 3 years because before she lived in the interior of the country. To this day, her most important relations are with her classmates from Venezuela. She lives in Israel. You know, Jews, there are many Jews in Israel, and yet the most important connections are with her friends from Venezuela. What I'm trying to say is that the Jewish community in Venezuela was, and I still is, I think, sui generis. It is very exceptional. I think we have to do everything in our power to make sure that this community stays, that it continues to maintain its institutions. You know, we always gave scholarships to students that didn't have the means, whose parents didn't have the means. Nobody was taken out of our school or didn't have access to the school because of economic reasons. This was the idea. Every Jewish child has a right to Jewish education. Now, we had a percentage of people that couldn't afford it. Nowadays, it's the other way around. Many, I don't know if most, receive some kind of help. Where does the help come from? It is very difficult because the community has become smaller and smaller. All our institutions are working to this very day. There are rabbis, there is kosher meat, there is cholav Yisrael in Venezuela, cheese that is cholav Yisrael. everything is working 100%. However, each day makes it more difficult to maintain these institutions. I don't want to go into the political situation of Venezuela because I think one day wouldn't be enough to analyze what is going on. But the situation, as I mentioned in the very beginning, the fact that the salary is $1 a month, the fact that almost 6 million people left is a sign that things are terrible. I don't say that Jews are discriminated especially, but you know, we always feel it a little bit more because the government is allied with all the leftist rogue countries in the world, so that we Jews are not doing very well. The embassy in Venezuela of Israel was closed on television by the previous president, I think in 2009, something like that. It's over 10 years ago. Simply closed the embassy and that's it, told the ambassador, pack up your bags and go. And Venezuela was one of the countries that recognized, together with other Latin American countries, the state of Israel when it was created. It was a tremendous ally. Why? Democracy, one democracy with the other. Today it is different. So I'm not saying that the Jewish community is being singled out especially, but you know, we Jews always suffer a little bit more. But what is important, as you say, Kol Israel arevim ze baze. Not only ze laze, ze baze, inside. We have to make sure that we do not permit that this community somehow disappear. You know, they're doing everything to maintain it. You know, the government, the system that we have today, who knows what will happen in the world? Who of us anticipated a pandemic in the world? Nobody did. Who knows? Suddenly something can happen in the world that will change everything. We must make sure that the Jewish community that is there is able to resist these very difficult times. And if we don't give them aid from outside, unfortunately, the future is very bleak. And you know, to start a community from nothing is very difficult. But if you maintain these institutions as weak or as strong as they may be now, when better times will come to Venezuela, we'll have a base upon which to build for the future. I think it's very important. And it's an appeal to conscience, Rabbi Schneier. This is your specialty, an appeal to conscience of Jews all over the world to give a helping hand to the Jewish community in Venezuela.
So let's talk tachlis.
Okay, that's it. Okay, Rabbi.
And I think everyone knows the plight and the difficulty of the country, and particularly a Jewish community that has dwindled down in numbers. How do you keep the Ner Tamid going? First, I want to express great respect and admiration to the leadership of the community in Venezuela, who are standing guard to keep that Ner Tamid going. And they deserve all the help in the world. So the question is, in what way? You know that situation better than anyone else, and you also have a constituency in Miami Beach, in Florida, of former Venezuelans. In what tangible way can we increase that support, other than the moral support that you have given and the spiritual guidance that you have given?
Well, Rabbi Schneier, there are many foundations that are led by Jewish people or non-Jewish people in the world, foundations that look for causes that they can help. Well, here is a tremendous cause. We want to make sure that a community that has more than 100 years, really, because people came to Venezuela from Curacao, you know, from Europe. You know, Curacao used to be a colony, really, of Holland. So many Jews migrated to Curacao, from Curacao to Venezuela. By the way, from Curacao to Venezuela is, I think, 35 miles, something like that. It is a short distance, really. So we have old Jewish communities in Venezuela. You know, the great liberator of Venezuela was Simon Bolivar, who has also liberated several other countries. When I lived in Lima, Peru, we had a Plaza Simon Bolivar. He was one of the heroes of the liberation. He was helped by Jews in Curacao. this is an ongoing relationship between Venezuela and the Jewish community. Right now, we Jews in Venezuela, and I say we Jews in Venezuela because even though I live in Miami, Libi b'mizrach ve'anochi b'sof ma'arav, my heart still beats with Venezuela. A day doesn't pass by that I don't get some kind of call, some kind of communication with somebody in Venezuela. Once a day is little, several times a day. So that I am still greatly attached to the Jewish community in Venezuela. And I think that it would be a crime that we wouldn't forgive ourselves if we would permit that the Jewish community of Venezuela somehow disappear or become next to nothing. And eventually we will have to, I don't know what we're going to do. So right now it's a question of the Union Israelita. Maybe Mr. Lab, the president of the Jewish community, can tell us exactly what some foundations, some very generous people can do in order to assist the Jewish community in a very Moshe way, you know, in a very real, concrete way. As you say, what can you do? Well, if $1 a month is the salary, see if you can raise in the Jewish community that the salary should be $100 a month in the Jewish community. See what you can do to make sure that every institution in Venezuela, that every Jewish child in Venezuela receives education, that we can pay our teachers, we can pay our rabbis, that we can maintain the Beit Avot, that we can maintain the Jewish club, which is tremendous in getting together the Jewish people.
Rabbi Brener, I'm with you. And again, I emphasize your commitment to Klal Yisrael. You also have to understand that the American Jewish community is going through a very difficult time. You mentioned about not turning any child away. Do not prevent any Jewish child from getting a Jewish education. I can only tell you from not only my experience at Park East Synagogue and all the day schools in Manhattan, particularly in New York, where you have many, many parents who lost their jobs, who were not in need of financial aid. Now they ask for scholarships. The pandemic has caused many dislocations right here, and it's a major, major issue. But in spite of that, the organized Jewish community in the United States has not forgotten the Jews all over the world. And I can promise you one thing, as a senior member of the Joint Distribution Committee, I will be a great advocate to see what we can do more as far as the JDC is concerned in this respect. And then also, I think when I come down to Florida, you and I don't have to wait for that. We can put our heads together and see in what way we can reach out to others. But again, don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. You know, it's the Parshat Yitro. And very interesting that at the most momentous occasion for the Jewish people, there was lightning and thunder, right? And it's interesting that the Jews at that particular time were able to see the thunder and hear the lightning. How do you interpret that? You interpret it in a way that even we have the thunder, whether it's in Venezuela, whether it's throughout the world, you have to know that there's a better future ahead. We were decimated by the loss of millions throughout the world through the COVID-19 and the high loss in the United States, particularly in New York or London, Paris, you name it. But again, there's a better day ahead. It's like Rabbi Akiva said. Remember the famous midrash when he walked by the ruins,
right?
Of
the other cried, but he was very happy.
Remember, now I'm going to test your recollection.
I just told you the other rabbis cried, but he was very happy because one prophecy was being fulfilled, so another prophecy is going to be fulfilled also.
He says, "While I see the destruction I can already see the Gula, the future. So my message to you, all of you, don't give up hope. In order to survive, you have to have hope. You have to have emunah, bitachon. But let's go back to the practical question. What exactly in tangible aid does the community require today?
Okay, I wanted to say the following.
Saluti valori for Italy. Good night.
You mentioned that there are
Valori from Italy.
Yes, you mentioned that there are many problems even in the United States now because of the pandemic, as far as Jewish education is concerned. We are aware of that, but you and I have raised funds for different issues. We know that.
Hello, valori.
I know, for instance, that those that do not want to give always have an excuse, and those that give to everything, because those have a tremendous heart. So we are really appealing to those that give to other causes as well. There's no question about it. Listen, you love your father, you love your mother, you love your wife. Those that don't love their father probably don't love their wife either. Our heart is big enough in order to integrate so many things. We just want to bring to the attention of the good-hearted people that Venezuelan Jewish community is going through a very difficult time, and we should do our utmost in order to help them. And I'm sure that the president of the Unión Israelita, Mr. Samuel Gelman, is going to be able to tell us exactly how we can translate that into effective aid for the Jewish community. But I thank you very much, Rabbi Schneier, for your input, and I thank you very much for participating with us today in sounding an alarm bell as far as the Jewish community in Venezuela. I know that there are problems all over the world. I am aware of that. But how do we solve all the problems in the world? By beginning to solve one by one. Today, I think we should concentrate in helping the Jewish community of Venezuela.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank all the participants. Thank you very much for taking some of your precious time to be with us, to listen to our situation, to listen, of course, to the bright minds of Rabbi Brener and Rabbi Schneier. And I appreciate very much, Rabbi Schneier, your encouragement. I can assure you that the last thing we are going to lose is our hope. And we are here fighting to keep, as Rabbi Brener said, a beautiful community that is going through a very, very difficult times, especially the Ashkenazi community. I don't want to generalize. The Sephardic community, of course, is also suffering, but they are in a little better position than the Ashkenazi community is. And I want to give you some hard numbers. Well, not very hard, but to put everybody in perspective of what is the situation in our side of the community, in the Ashkenazi community, in the Unión Israelita de Caracas. First, as Rabbi said, a fifth of the community has emigrated, but the Ashkenazi community has lost more than a fifth of that of that part.
Not a fifth, 4/5 have gone.
I'm sorry, we are a fifth of what used to be.
That's fifth. Oh, that's different.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, correct.
Rabbi Brener, you were always very good on mathematics. You know that?
Well, I taught mathematics. I'm not a mathematician, but I taught mathematics.
I know, I remember.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you for the correction. And of course, the proportion of the people that emigrate tend to be first the people with the highest economic power or the better situation. The demographics of the community has also been affected. It's inverted. We have an inverted pyramid where there are more elder people than younger people. Of course, that also impacts the situation. And we in the Ashkenazi community in the Union Israelita Caracas, we have lost more than 2/3 of our income. We have done a lot of work reducing costs, but there is a point where you cannot reduce any more costs without losing your character. Meaning, if I don't pay rabbis, then I'm not a Jewish community anymore. If I don't have kashrut, then I don't have a Jewish community anymore. If I don't provide, as the philosophy of the community is, not a single Jewish child will be without Jewish education, then education is the base of our traditions. So all those things need to be, even though again there has been a reduced and optimized or rationalized, there is a point where we cannot rationalize more without losing our character. And the income that we are receiving from regular memberships don't even come close to cover 20% of those costs, because a large part of our income that were used to be celebrations, weddings, bar mitzvahs, brit milas, have basically died out. We haven't had any celebration in 2 years. Well, no, I don't want to be that extreme, but probably 2 or 3 when we used to have 50. Rabbi Brener, remember you didn't have time to relax. You were one wedding to another wedding.
I'm glad that you appreciate me now.
So that's where we cannot, and also, well, again, because of the impoverishment of the community, it's more people needing direct help to cover their basic needs. The JDC helps a lot, but it's not enough. It's not enough. And again, that's where probably the JDC is helping a lot, but if we want to keep the community, the Ashkenazi community alive and try that it won't disappear, we need help in covering the costs of doing business, of having a rabbi, of having kashrut, of maintaining a school, etc., etc. So those are our main points that I wanted to bring to the attention of all of you. If, of course, any questions with details, I'll be glad to answer.
I want to thank you for the very challenging and difficult report, and also kol hakavod for being a leader of the community in these trying times. I just look at my screen and I see one of our members, Harry Carton, made a commitment, a donation of $500. Where do I send it? So what's the answer to that one?
Rabbi Schneier, this is Avram Lappin. I will send you the precise instructions when we hang up.
All right. I also see a very, very dedicated leader of JDC, Amir Shaviv, on the screen. Amir, you want to say something? I want to count on you. Maybe we can help increase the budget of JDC, which is under tremendous pressure from all over the world. But Amir, you want to say something?
First of all, it was very interesting, and I thank Rabbi Brener, of course, and I thank you, Rabbi Schneier, who is one of the senior board members of JDC, and as such, responsible for most of the help that's going out. We have here Sergio Vida, who's the JDC director for Latin America and Venezuela. Perhaps, Sergio, you want to mention and answer this question. Unmute yourself here.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning from Buenos Aires. I'm so glad to be able to join this meeting. Thank you very much. And I'm glad to see good friends who are in Caracas, Samuel and Roberto Mishkin, whose camera is now off, I think, but I saw him earlier. Well, it's not for me to speak about what JDC is doing in Venezuela. We have here Samuel and Roberto who can give many more details, and would be fair for them for me to give them the chance to say it. But simply, you should know that for over 4 years now, JDC has been securing food supplies and medicines for those in the community who cannot afford it. And beyond that, we've been working very closely with both the Unión and the Unión Israelita and the Asociación, the Sephardic community, with the board of the Jewish Day School. And we are also securing food supplies for the residents of the Home for the Elderly, the Beit Avot. But it's clear, as Samuel just pointed out, that there are some areas where JDC has not stepped in and is not planning to step in, that have to do with religious services or religious activities, or funding the Jewish Day School. Actually, I mean, there is one school that belongs to both communities, but there are three other day schools, and there are many things that cannot be covered by JDC, like many of the expenses of the of the JCC. I think Rabbi Brener mentioned Hebraica Caracas, which is truly the heart of the community, the place where everyone gets together. So any additional effort that can be done to help that community will be truly a very, very good and humanitarian and solidarity decision. I only want to add that JDC, the joint, has committed to continue these efforts for 2021 and hopefully for the future. Wherever there is a Jew facing needs, JDC is there. And I don't want to take more time. I simply want to thank the opportunity of sharing this information, which, as we say, and especially because our friends in Caracas always ask this to us, we keep this work very, very low profile, very, very low profile. When we say we secure food supplies for 300 families who in the Jewish community who cannot afford by themselves, we say this is happening in a country where tens of millions of people are starving or close to starvation. And that's why we keep this on a very, very low profile, because we don't want anyone to be exposed to any danger. And if there are questions, I'll be happy to address them. Thanks so much.
Espera un momento, voy a...
To add one more item about Venezuela, so we should have some kind of concept of what we're dealing with. You know, I mentioned before that the monthly wage is $1 a month, but Venezuela sits on the largest oil reserves in the world. It is true that oil doesn't have the prices that it had before, but I remember when the previous president came to power, the price of oil was $12 a barrel. Today it's 40, 50, whatever, it's much more. And Venezuela has enormous potential in the future. I don't want to get into the political situation of Venezuela, because I say I will never finish with that, but I want you to know that the future is really promising for Venezuela. If we'd have a change of regime, if we'd stop somehow corruption and so many other problems that exist in Venezuela, Venezuela has a way of recovering. But in the meantime, we have to make sure that our patient that is very sick doesn't die. We have to give him life support right now. This is a question of pikuach nefesh for the Jewish community. It should not become extinguished. It should be able to stay there. And as Rabbi Schneier very well said, We have to keep the Ner Tamid with sufficient oil. We should never permit that the Ner Tamid just go out in Venezuela, no more aflame. This is our appeal. Make sure that the Jewish community of Venezuela has enough vigor and stamina so that when a better future comes, we will be able to reorganize ourselves and once again become a magnet for not only Jews, for many other people to come to Venezuela. I remember not only from Argentina, where our friend is, people used to come to Venezuela, non-Jews, from Chile, from the south of the continent, from Italy, from Spain. People came for a better living in Venezuela. Today, it's the other way around. Today, we export people, unfortunately. I do hope that the time will come when we once again become a net importer of people, human beings, Jews and non-Jews, to Venezuela. So please help us not to permit that the Ner Tamid that Rabbi Schneier spoke about become extinguished. Let's give it a little oil, a little energy. And the energy is by supporting the Jewish community of Venezuela.
Rabbi Brener, I want to thank you for bringing us together. I think you recruited me to be your partner in trying to keep that Ner Tamid going. I just want to end up on a hopeful note. Pesach is around the corner. You have Purim first. Again, a very joyous festival. But on Pesach is also known as the Chag HaAviv, the Spring Festival, okay? Now, you're in Miami Beach. I'm in cold New York, snowy New York, okay? And just like Rabbi Akiva, I'm also already seeing spring. I see spring, even though I see the snow, all right? So I think together, and Amir, you let me know when is the next meeting of the Latin America Committee and the board. And you and I and Sergio, thank you for your job in Argentina, much appreciated. Let's put our heads together. I want to go on record and right now, which I will advocate even at the board. Sergio, you said something that JDC is not supporting any schools. Is that correct?
Yes, we are not giving money for scholarships at the Jewish Day School, but we are working with the board of the school. And by the way, Roberto, who is here, knows this very well because his wife is a member. Lisette Margulis is a member of the board, so we do work with the board to help them, and we are also helping them in terms of having better governance, but we do not give any scholarships for tuition fee.
Amir,
and that's not part of JDC's role.
Amir, you and I worked very, very closely in the former Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. And you know how important it is, if you want to have the Ner Tamid going, to think in terms of educating the next generation, all right? So you can count on me to be a very strong spokesman at the JDC of the change in policy. We should also not only think in terms of centers, but also in terms of Jewish education.
I believe that everything can always be looked into, but at this point, the urgency of the needs and the limitation of our ability to allocate money is a kind of a triage. And I believe that in consultation with the community leaders, we are focusing on what is defined as the most urgent needs. And of course, in the beautiful mosaic of Jewish organizations, there might be others who may be more focused on education, but again, we can discuss it. And as you suggested, in the next Latin American meeting, we can look into it. And of course, you're welcome, more than welcome. You are a board member, you are a senior board member, and we can always talk about it. But yeah, I believe the community is directing us to what is the urgency triage in terms of what comes first at this particular moment.
Con su permiso, I don't represent any organization. but I did ask Mr. Avram Lapin to put the information for donations into the chat.
Yeah.
So
Good
if
idea.
you open your chat, if you haven't already, you will see where things can be sent. I lived in Venezuela for several years with my family. We know Rabbi Brener very well, and it certainly is a worthwhile thing to do.
Yep.
Rabbi
Thank you,
Brener,
Mr.
you
Rabbi.
have the last word. Go ahead.
And Rabbi Brener, Rabbi Schneier, thank you both for your time and your wisdom and your call to action. And we look forward to many good things coming out of the result of this meeting. And since we likely won't see each other together before Pesach, we'll say Chag Sameach now. And with the hopeful light, as Rabbi Schneier and Rabbi Brener indicated, the hopeful light, really in front of us.
And above all, good health, and let us find a relief to the scourge of the pandemic that has affected the entire world.
Amen.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your participation. We appreciate it very much. In the name of our board of directors, thank you again.
One last word, difference between Purim and Pesach. Purim is a very joyous holiday. Pesach is, of course, very joyous also. We have our family together. It's very great. But Purim solved a punctual problem at a certain point. Haman died, but Ahasuerus remained king. We were still in exile. While Pesach meant we are out of the chains of slavery. We are free now. That's a permanent thing. We have to make sure that we give the Jewish community a permanent solution so they can come out of this situation. So, Freilichen in kosheren Pesach to everybody. Chag kasher v'sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Sameach.
Rabbi Schneier, thank you very much. We will continue. We don't give up. I don't want to say we are old warriors. We are warriors with experience. So we will continue to accumulate experiences. I want to thank you very much for your participation. Look forward to seeing you in Miami. If not in Miami, maybe in New York, or maybe we'll meet in Israel. L'shana haba, we're going to say at the end of the Pesach Seder, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. Today you don't have to say L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. Hashana b'Yerushalayim. This year. Why do we have to wait for next year? Rabbi Schneier, stay well, and God should give you many more healthy years with the clarity of mind that you always have.
Thank you.
Amen.
God.
Amen. Amen to both of you.
Thank you all very much.